Good afternoon, everybody. My name is David Gallo. I'm the director of the AIFC Academy of Law, and we're broadcasting from Nur Sultan, Kazakhstan this afternoon. So welcome to all of you across the region and possibly from across the globe. We really appreciate your participation in today's event. This is really an information setting, dissemination session that we're having today. I'm going to talk to you a bit about the Academy of Law, what its nature and purpose is, very briefly, how that relates to the grander economic development vision of the Republic of Kazakhstan, and how legal education will be playing a vital part in the development of a so-called knowledge economy, and even more specifically in our case, knowledge-based legal system development. So again, welcome to all of you. The format will be, I'm going to take you through some slides. And I do have my colleague Almas, who will be running the slide presentation. And I'll spend about maybe 20 to 30 minutes going over the context and why we're doing what we're doing. Then we'll be specific about the course descriptions that we have coming up starting in September, this very month. And then most important, how these courses could be valuable to you in your education journey. It's really all about education as a lifelong process and continuing to find ways to develop professionally, both with regard to your knowledge and your skills for satisfaction, career advancement, and so forth. So that's what today is all about. What we're going to do is we're opening the chat function. So if you have questions as I'm speaking, or as my colleague Jefferson Burton, who will join a bit later in providing some of the presentation, is you can send your questions in via the written chat using the chat function. And when we get to the end of the presentation, we'll have time for Q&A. And Almas will go ahead and he will be reading to Jeff and to me the questions that have come in from you, and we'll do our best to try to answer them. So with that, Almas, go ahead and please advance the slides. All right, big picture. We're going to talk about context, that what kind of market environment do we have? What are the global macroeconomic pressures and considerations that we are taking into account? What's the big picture look like in terms of providing a landscape or a framework for legal education that will be meaningful to those of you who are interested in becoming international commercial finance lawyers and working on a cross-border basis in an international environment, ideally within the AIFC jurisdiction. Once we talk about that context, now we can deduce certain findings, certain takeaways, if you will. And those takeaways and those deductions really then will inform our vision, our mission, and our strategy and our operating model. And most important, it will enable us to develop and deliver courses. And I use the term courses very generally because we have some specific permutations and variations on those courses that would be fit for the particular purpose that we're trying to accomplish, i.e. the educational outcomes, the academic learnings that we hope to achieve. Okay, so Almas, please advance the slide. Okay, big picture. All right, so we're here in Kazakhstan. Obviously, it's a massive country from a geographic standpoint. It's a key country when it comes to natural resources, minerals, and so forth for the entire region. Kazakhstan's on the Belt and Road. You've all heard about the major economic development plan called the Belt and Road Initiative. And so we have an emerging market that has already begun substantially to emerge. And there is tremendous growth potential with the opportunity for Kazakhstan to be the commercial hub, the business hub for the entire region. So I'm looking now at the left-hand side of the page. This is a global stage. It's not a local stage. The idea is to become an international commercial center, that is the CIS region, to become a substantial economic global player. It's a commercial hub. So at the AIFC, the Astana International Financial Center, it's not about family law. It's not about criminal law. It's about business law and business transactions, and if required, business-related dispute resolution. The focus is on economic growth. I think everyone who's on this call already knows that the AIFC is intended as a commercial hub to attract foreign direct investment. You see my little FDI suitcase there, foreign direct investment, which means that we're attempting to attract multinational companies as well as regional and local players to come here, send people, get set up, and engage in financial services business and ancillary service related businesses to infuse capital into the system, and we'll talk more about that. And then that capital in turn would be deployed in major infrastructure development projects. We'll talk about that in a minute. So the idea is to diversify this economy away from being less dependent on oil and gas sector. Those will continue to be foundational sectors, but to be less dependent on them from an economic standpoint. Mining and minerals is also an area where there's a lot of concentration, major resources. But for the long-term sustainability of the economy and for growth in major infrastructure projects, and ultimately for the betterment of society and the quality of living, the idea is to diversify the economy across multiple industries and segments. Partnering. The AIFC can't do it alone. The Republic of Kazakhstan can't do it alone. You need private partnerships, public-private partnerships that take the best of government and the best of private practice, the best of the AIFC, and put that all together in a collaborative manner, because we ultimately have one vision, and that's for the long-term sustainable economic growth of Kazakhstan as well as the entire region. Major projects. Okay, what's that all about? Well, when you think about the scale of financing transactions that will be required for investment in major infrastructure projects, well, those projects are things like transportation infrastructure, rail, highways, airports, and so forth. Processing plants like petrochemical plants, refineries, and so forth. Water treatment, electric utility, power generation and distribution. These are major projects that require a substantial amount of capital and certainly involve highly sophisticated, highly structured legal transactions, commercial contracts, if you will. So the idea is to service major projects and to provide a platform for the successful execution and delivery of those projects. Economic metrics, what are we talking about there? Well, at the governmental level, whether it's in Kazakhstan or any other government, governments really care about economic metrics that will be measurement systems to see how we're doing on the global stage. So things like GDP, GDP growth, output, employment rates, unemployment rates, income, per capita income, and so forth, balance of trade. These are all things that economists and governments very much care about. And one of the key aims of the AIFC is to drive the growth of the metrics that make that have become really the key performance indicators for the economic growth plan overall. New legal system. Okay, now this is where it gets really relevant to what we're doing here. And that takes us over to the right-hand column. Well, all of the points in the vision on the left are fabulous. They're spot on. They are workable. These are proven focal points based on the experiences of other emerging markets across the globe. However, actually delivering on this vision is another story. And that's what we're focused on, is for every vision statement, there is an education opportunity for us to drive the success of accomplishing that vision. So first and foremost, it's a new legal jurisdiction. So through education, we can create jurisdiction awareness about the AIFC. It's a common law jurisdiction, but we're surrounded by civil law jurisdiction. So the idea is, how do you cross that divide? How do you work collaboratively with other jurisdictions? And how do we create awareness of what this AIFC common law jurisdiction is all about? And how do we create awareness of the benefits for these multinational, local, and regional companies to come here, get set up, do business here? What are the commercial benefits, to those companies? So we need to make sure we're advertising that. Knowledge of laws and rules, okay? So legal systems can be complicated. And there is a substantive statutory knowledge and regulatory knowledge that we need to make sure that people are up to speed on. And then there are rules and sub-rules around that. Complex transactions, we talked already about that. These major projects, not only are they generally high ticket value, high financial value, but they could be incredibly complex. There may well be multiple parties from multiple jurisdictions who have all come together in a collaborative win-win setting to put together these commercial transactions. So you need to have highly skilled and highly trained lawyers, both in substantive matters and in practical skills, who can deliver on behalf of their clients these complex transactions. Diverse backgrounds. This is the beauty of an international commercial center, financial center. And that is, by definition, it's international. So we have a diverse range of people with various backgrounds who are coming to this playing field. And so we need to look for ways to assess those academic and experiential backgrounds in particular, and make sure that we're providing education to address the needs of those major stakeholder groups. We already talked about civil and common law. Well, there are similarities, but there are some fundamental differences. So people who are here who have a civil law background certainly could benefit by the common law academic foundation, as well as practical skills that are appropriate in a common law environment, and vice versa. Those with a common law background, like myself, may require some education on civil law systems, civil law statutory systems, and practice motifs, because in fact, some of these major transactions may involve both civil law and common law aspects that relate to the same transaction. Practice standards, what does that mean? You have lawyers from various jurisdictions from across the world. There may be various practice standards that they are accustomed to, but we need to create our own unified practice standard here at the AIFC to make sure that these professionals are up to speed and can represent their clients in a competent way, and of course to enhance their own career development opportunities here. So we need to have sort of a standardized framework of competencies that becomes our baseline for developing and delivering our education programs. Skewed playing field, what does that mean? That only means that if you're a common law practitioner, you might have an advantage here over your civil law counterparts. Well, we want to make sure that we've created equal access to this jurisdiction, to focus on Kazakhstan lawyers, other CIS-based lawyers, other lawyers who may not have had a common law background, but they have a fabulous civil law background. Well, it's our aim to make sure that we're providing the learning and development opportunities for them. And the obverse goes for common law lawyers who may need some civil law background to really operate effectively and efficiently in this environment. Well, we want to make sure those common law lawyers have access to this jurisdiction. Education gaps. Well, this is not a judgmental comment about legal education generally. Lawyers, it's fair to say that if you're a qualified lawyer from your home jurisdiction, you have received a wonderful education that has prepared you to practice law in that jurisdiction where you got the education. However, no matter how high quality or how top brand an education institution is, it's highly likely that there are some gaps because we're in a new environment. The practice of law has changed. The global practice of law, of international law, has changed. So now we need to come up with new models in education to supplement the already fabulous academic foundation that lawyers that already have. But we need to do our part to make sure they're prepared to operate in this new world, if you will. Almas, you can advance the slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to pick up the pace. We want to get to the good part here, which is what courses are we offering in the rest of 2020 and into 2021. Well, the takeaways from this analysis that we did is that the legal system really is a foundation for growth. Whether it's a highly structured financing transaction or a secondary market, capital markets transaction, or a major project that would be the beneficiary of the proceeds, or the businesses that would be the beneficiary of these corporate finance activities, for example. Well, the fact is that none of those transactions can happen without proper legal documentation and commercial contracts to make it real, to make sure that all the rights and obligations of the parties are clear, that the contracts are enforceable, and so forth. So we need to have a sound system of laws, a sound system of dispute resolution processes, i.e. a sound legal system as that foundation for these economic growth projects and opportunities. So the logic goes that you need knowledgeable professionals who can transact those deals and resolve those disputes. And how do you make that happen? Well, education and ongoing knowledge and development are really key success factors to make sure we can deliver on that vision of economic growth. Okay, Almas, next slide. Okay, so now that we've looked at the context, we've looked at the takeaways, now we have a basis, a meaningful, rational basis for establishing an academy of law that can add value to the educational journeys of students and lawyers here, as well as to business professionals. So now we can say our vision is the same vision as the Republic of Kazakhstan's national vision, which is we need to develop this AIFC system as a foundation for economic growth. And within that AIFC system, we need to really focus on legal system development because the legal processes and so forth will really drive the execution of those contracts. So what's our mission? What does that mean? How do we make it real? Well, we're really focused on one thing, and that's preparing lawyers for international commercial law practice by delivering legal education that has global value. So we're gonna deliver that education here, but that education ideally will have value across border, across the globe. Okay, what does that mean? How do we make it even more real than that? So what are we going to do? We know what we need to do. Now, what will we actually do? Well, the strategy is to create a unique model in legal education that features the integration of law, business, ethics, and cross-jurisdiction practice. Well, how are we going to do that? How are we going to implement that strategy? Well, we're going to do that by collaborating with world-class partners. This isn't about competing with the other educational institutions. It's about redefining this broad global market, and together with collaboration partners who have already figured out how to do this the right way in their own home jurisdictions, whether that home be here, or whether that home be in London or the US or Australia or France or Egypt or where have you. Wherever they have developed their core competencies in their area, those are the collaboration partners that we're aligning with so that we can leverage global best practices. So if we're looking for common law, high quality content, we'll look to high quality common law education institutions. Same with civil law. What about business? Why do we care about business? This is a business environment. Business lawyers should know something about business. Lawyers should know something about the business of law and the business of their corporate clients. So business really matters. So we're looking to align with world-class business education partners. Why do we care about ethics and cross-jurisdiction practice? Well, this is a unique environment. At the end of the day, the global development of the rule of law is something that is more than just a fancy phrase or a marketing tagline. It really matters because legal systems and the ongoing establishment of the rule of law, well, these are governing principles that govern not only business, but human behavior generally. So we need to make sure that's being done in an ethical, transparent manner with the highest standards of integrity that become an integrated part of the economic development activities that take place here. So lawyers need to be leaders when it comes to the rule of law and when it comes to ethical behaviors in the marketplace. Cross-jurisdiction practice, well, nothing really prepares you to operate in an international environment like this or the other international centers across the world. And so cross-jurisdiction practice is here to stay. That takes certain skills, like negotiating with foreign governments, for example, cultural sensitivity, for example, knowledge of other legal systems and practices, for example. All of that matters. Almost, you can go ahead to the next slide. Okay, so here's how we've set ourselves up. Our operating model is patterned on the way a professional organization or the way a law school might be structured. And that is that there are typically four major pillars, if you will. So think about a law society or a bar association, for example. So on the left-hand side, probably our primary focus needs to be on education. And our focus here at the Academy as part of the AIFC is to drive cross-system competency. So that's our sub-strategy within education. Publications, I won't belabor that. That's not the focus of today's information session. But the idea is, in any academic setting, especially a complex, evolving legal setting, you need to effectively take the lead on creating the IP of the profession, the intellectual property of the profession, and memorializing and documenting what is being developed. So publications will be a big part of our focus. Pro bono, provide corporate socially responsible services to the community. Pro bono means for the public good. In the legal world, that means if you're a lawyer, you've had the good luck and good fortune to find yourselves in this esteemed profession, and there needs to be a moral commitment by all legal professionals to try to give back. So pro bono programs are generally about giving free legal advice to people who need it, but they can't afford to pay for it. Legal community development, well, as professionals, we like to associate with other professionals. And who better than groups of lawyers? Who is better positioned to develop law and policy in areas that really matter as governments evolve and as economies grow? Our strategic goals, I'm going to focus on education now. Develop the online learning platform. Well, by necessity, we had to accelerate that based on the pandemic circumstances. We had to convert our business model overnight to a high quality, high value online learning platform. We're going to continue that. Our intention is to be best in class when it comes to web-based, technology-based legal education, best in class globally. That's what we're aiming for. We're partnering with other AIFC bodies for BD. BD is short for business development. Well, the idea here is AIFC is up and running. Hundreds of participants have joined. More than 40 law firms have joined. So the AIFC is well on its way. We need to attract more firms, ancillary services companies, financial services related companies, and so forth to come here, get set up. So we need to support the other AIFC bodies in their mission. Part of that is delivering sector-specific foundations courses. You have to start somewhere. It's a new jurisdiction. So we're going to get into this now in a minute on our various AIFC foundational course offering. Establish international collaborations. We talked about that already. And we're migrating toward, we're looking ahead. We're looking to the future. The future is now. And there needs to be a new model in legal education. And these are the first steps toward that new model. Almas, please. Okay, so this is a summary of the courses that we're in the process of launching. And then following this page, this summary page, I'm going to talk specifically about some of these that we think may be attractive to you. And we look forward to having follow-up communications with you. My colleague, Jeff, after I speak, will leave you with some information on how to contact us and how to register for our courses and so forth. Okay, so big picture. Over the next 12 months, this is what we have in mind. Foundation programs and certificates. Okay, so we're launching in October an AIFC foundations program really geared for students or even for business people who just may want to know more about the AIFC legal framework, because in their jobs they may care about the legal system, and this knowledge of the AIFC framework could help them. So whether they're non-lawyer risk managers, financial managers, compliance managers, anti-money laundering managers, and so forth, business executives, HR managers, there is a lot to be said for business professionals as well as students to get a fundamental understanding of the framework here. And I'll talk in more detail about that program in a minute. 2021, early 21, we'll be launching a similar program for lawyers, as well as sort of advanced business professionals. And that's going to be sort of an expansion of the core foundations program. It'll include more practice standards, workshop related learning and development activities. So that will be especially designed for lawyers. Certificate courses. We're launching a series of, I think there are about 8 or 9 of them here. This will end up being a list of probably 10 or 12 certificate courses. These will be 6 hours each. I'll get more into the structure of those in just a moment after this slide. But basically, here are the topics. You attend the 6-hour session. You'll need to attend all 6 hours, but we'll record the lectures if required, if you have to miss one. And they will be in our stock exchange listings. AIX is the Astana International Stock Exchange, and these would be debt and equity listings as well as capital markets activities. We have a certificate in that. AFSA is the Astana Financial Services Authority. They are the regulator for financial services firms who register here and thereby will be subject to the AIFC regulations. We're doing a certificate program around those regulations. HR law and practice, human resources law and practice, we'll get into detail, corporate governance, contracts law, substantive common law of contracts, then a contracts workshop that will be more practical. Then there will be something related but not identical called legal writing, anti-money laundering and compliance, extraordinarily important topic that we plan to roll out a lot of that, starting with a 6-hour certificate program, business skills for lawyers. We'll get more specific about that in a moment. Short courses, legal talks. Legal Talks is an institution, an educational institution that was started more than a year ago here. We're going to expand that. We're going to continue that, and we're going to build on that. Well, Legal Talks really will be 1.5 to 2 hour lectures. They could be panel discussions. They could be on highly relevant AIFC topics, changes in legislation, maybe policy papers, what have you. So we'll be launching those, and we're targeting doing maybe one of those every 2 months. If we need to, we'll do them more frequently, but that's what we mean by Legal Talks. Webinar series. Well, if there's good news in this pandemic situation, one bit of good news is that it seems to be improving dramatically, thanks to changes in behaviors from all of us, people who matter. But another outcome, an incidental outcome to what has happened is because of the remote learning necessitated by the health situation, we launched a webinar series, and these are basically 1 hour topical formats, relevant topics delivered by international experts and specialists, whether they be AIFC personnel or law firm barristers, lawyers, university professors. So we really took this webinar series to a new level, and now we decided to continue to invest in developing that institution that we're calling the webinar series. And that will continue as pretty much a 1 hour format. For now, they will be complimentary, free of charge for now, as a public service to the legal community. And we're targeting doing one of those per month. Stay tuned. I mean, I'm biased, but they're fabulous. I mean, these are from experts in their field, and they're really high value, and they're relevant to what we do. International qualifications. I'm going to talk a little bit about anti-money laundering and compliance, but my colleague Jeff will talk about the ability to become a U.S. qualified lawyer or an English solicitor. So those are the things that we're offering. Almost, you can advance. Keeping an eye on the clock. Okay, so foundations for students, right? So this is the first one that was on the prior page. This will be 25 lecture hours. The program will be divided into 5 separate modules, and each of the 5 modules will in turn have 5 1-hour lectures. So that's where we get the total of 25 lecture hours. I'm sorry if that sounded complicated. It's not intended to be so. So you can see the topics of each of the 5 modules. There will be 5 1-hour lectures on the AIFC General Legal Framework, 5 more 1-hour lectures on the AIFC Financial Services Regulations, right? I mentioned AFSA before, the regulator. 3rd module will be on dispute resolution. That'll be the courts, as well as the International Arbitration Institute. You'll have 5 1-hour lectures on that. Then we have our stock exchange, the AIX. And that exchange deals with 2 things, really. Well, it deals with a lot of things, but 2 primary products that they deal in would be the issuance of debt securities, like bonds, as well as IPOs, the initial public offering of equity shares. So that's what the exchange does. There's also what I just mentioned are corporate finance transactions. So these are ways that companies raise money that they can then use for their operations or for whatever purposes they have identified. And those are generally, referred to as, primary corporate finance transactions. But then once those bonds are issued, or once the stock is floated, and the companies have taken in the proceeds of those transactions, well, in many cases, those financial securities, those financial instruments can be bought and sold on the international markets, or certainly on the AIX markets. And those are called capital markets, secondary market transactions. So there's a lot going on when it comes to the AIX. Foundations in Islamic finance, that will be a key pillar of the, will continue to be a key pillar of the AIFC as a center of excellence and a destination for parties who want to engage in Islamic finance transactions. Let's go back up toward the top of this slide. The lecturers, we want to make sure that you're not shortchanged, right? The lecturers will be experts, professional experts from the AIFC, from the legal department, from the AFSA, from the stock exchange, from the courts, from the International Arbitration Center, from Business Connect. We have a law firm who will be providing lectures called 7 Pillars. They are an AIFC registered law firm, highly talented. They will be providing some of the lectures. And also, see over here on the left, LAC and AP. LAC stands for the Legal Advisory Council. AP is the advisory panel for the regulation of lawyers. They're both AIFC senior advisory panels that have been put together in developing the AIFC legal framework in the first place. Well, the members of those committees are generally top-notch lawyers and barristers and others from the blue chip firms and companies. So they will be providing some of the lectures in this program. Almost, you can advance the slide. Okay, so we talked in the beginning about the certificate program. So these are now, each of these certificate courses, again, look over on the right side of the page. There's 6 hours total. They'll be broken up into 4 1.5-hour lectures. And generally there will be 1 lecture per week. So one of the 4 lectures for that certificate program will be, for example, on a Tuesday. So it might be every Tuesday for 4 consecutive weeks, 1.5 hours at a time. So each certificate program has that same format. 6 hours, 1.5-hour lectures times 4 lectures, delivered once a week, in some cases once every 2 weeks, depending on the program. And it will be from 5 o'clock to 6:30 p.m. to accommodate the needs of working professionals. And if you attend all 4 of the programs, ideally at least 3 of those will be live. And if you happen to miss one, we can provide you with the pre-recorded version, but you will need to participate in all 4 of those to get the certificate of completion. Okay, so the first one on the upper left, we've talked already about AIX debt and equity listings, primary market corporate finance transactions. And then we also briefly mentioned secondary market capital markets transactions. So we'll do a deep dive, 6 hours. The topics will be introduction to the London Stock Exchange and AIX listings. If you take the course, you'll see that there could be some interrelationship between the two. We'll talk about the IPO process, both debt and equity processes. This is oriented for lawyers. These are kind of master class level, if you will. Then there are also going to be, a lot of regulatory requirements in order to even list. It takes the preparation of offering memoranda and so forth, various disclosure documents that are required in order to even qualify to do a listing. So as a lawyer advising clients on what they need to do pre-IPO, and then what they need to do in the IPO, it's highly important and valuable for lawyers advising their clients to know that and be able to give that advice. Again, the lecturers are going to be experts from the AIX itself, from the stock exchange. So the senior experts from the legal and other departments will be giving those lectures, as well as our advisory council members. So that'll be first rate. Next one is on the AIFC regulation. So if you're a lawyer and you're advising your client who is already a registered financial services company at the AIFC, or who wants to become one, well, you as a lawyer will want to know how to advise your clients on what they can expect if they want to become a regulated financial services company, or if they already are one. What do your clients need to know? So the course is going to focus on conducting regulated business, who are the participants, and where are they recognized as a financial services business? Where can they operate? What are the permitted activities? What are the financial services activities that are permitted? And and then obviously there's always these transactions require sometimes the involvement of multiple parties. So you'll learn something about that. So there's an ongoing set of regulatory requirements that need to be complied with, and then there are various audits and so forth, and disclosure requirements companies have. So you'll learn about all of those things. Now let's go down to HR law and practice. Well, HR is an interesting area, human resources, because the intersection between law and business is never more pronounced than it is in the employment law world. So we have top-notch global law firm, Pinsent Masons, top-notch specialty legal financial services and advisory company, KPMG. You're all familiar with them. Well, they have partnered up. They're working together with the Academy of Law to deliver an HR law and practice program. So it will be not only employment law matters you need to know as a lawyer, but practical application of employment law principles at the workplace. So this is actually going to be open to HR professionals, as well as in-house lawyers and private practitioners, government lawyers, and so forth. So that will be one. This is one that I'm especially fond of because of its value, that it can bring to an organization. Corporate governance. Now, there's an interesting topic. Again, we talk about this intersection between law and business. Well, corporate governance is, fundamentally, it's a set of policies and procedures that the company establishes, and its directors and officers and employees then need to comply with those governance policies and procedures. Well, you know what? There's a substantial legal aspect to that. It's not just a business management. It's really about, these governance policies and procedures, in some cases, the policies and procedures are legal policies and procedures. They're laws and regulations that the companies are required to adopt. And in other cases, it's practical things like management committees and reporting and things like that. But when you think about it this way, everything about corporate governance requires legal involvement. So developing and creating the governance standards in the first place and implementing them at a company, well, that typically starts with a CEO contacting his or her law firm and saying, we're forming a company and we need a corporate governance program. Well, typically it's lawyers and risk managers who put that together. Well, now once they've developed that, it needs to be implemented. How do you create awareness about it? How do you create education programs about it? So multinational companies have learned that they need to make sure that the governance program is rolled out, that it's known to employees, that there's ongoing training and updates around that, and even ongoing compliance requirements for employees. So everything I've just mentioned involves lawyers on some level. And then certainly what happens if there's non-compliance with governance? What are the liabilities to the company or to the individuals around that? Well, what if you're a lawyer, representing that company and you need to work up those liabilities? And what if a dispute arises? What about if somebody comes to you as a lawyer who is a senior executive or on the board of directors, and they come to you and say, I've been accused of not following the governance procedures. I need a lawyer. So with law, as you know, it's all about justice, and justice means that both sides of a story need to be heard and represented in the case of a dispute. So anyway, we are fortunate enough to have the AIFC's head of strategy and head of governance. He has a couple different roles, and he's also the chairman of the AIFC Academy of Law Academic Council. We're fortunate enough to have him do the opening lecture on this governance program, and then from there we'll have a lot of legal focus around the things that I've discussed. Almost, you can advance the slides. I'm going to pick up the pace here. Okay, so this, kind of the foundational statutory system in any international commercial environment, international financial center, is contract law. I mean, every aspect of business, whether it's a transaction or relationships among bodies or between institutions, well, it's all about contracts law. So we're running a 6-hour deep dive program delivered by global law firm Baker Botts, and the key lecturer is someone who's an author of various commentaries, court rules, and so forth from Baker Botts. Well, he and his colleagues will be leading the charge, and you can see the topics there. We have to think about contract law and this common law AIFC system. How is that the same or different from civil law? What are some the theoretical underpinnings, the academic underpinnings of contract law? There are various aspects to formation, mutuality of agreement, consideration, defenses to creation, defenses to enforcement. What are some of the remedies if there is a breach of contract? So all of that will be covered. Over on the right, contracts workshop. Well, it's one thing to get the theoretical underpinnings, the substantive knowledge of contract law. It's another thing to develop the technical skills. Again, we have a fabulous group of barristers from the 36 Chambers group in London. And the leader of that group is somebody who I've worked with in the past, and he's absolutely unbelievable. So the topics will be contract negotiation and structuring. So structuring a contract, negotiating it, drafting it, implementing and managing a contract, and then in the event of a dispute, managing contract dispute resolution. Stay tuned for that. Legal writing. Okay, so words and writing are the tools of the trade. You all know that. And becoming a technically proficient professional legal writer is no easy task. You learn a lot of that in law school. You learn a lot of that in practice, but there's something to be said for having a focus on different types of writing, writing client letters, other legal correspondence. If you're an associate at a law firm and your senior partner wants a legal memorandum, a research paper on a certain specific topic of law, that's another style of writing. Basic communication in your written in your practice. So, for example, if you're in a courtroom setting where there are motions and pleadings and applications to the court and so forth, these are all different types of writing. This could be a full year program, and we might turn it into one at some point, but certainly this will be a nice overview of the fundamentals of legal writing that'll be delivered by another top-notch, internationally renowned barristers' chambers called Four Stones Buildings, also in London. Okay, on the right side, anti-money laundering and compliance, incredibly important. You all know that already. There are various types of anti-money laundering, there are different sectors where it's particularly relevant. Insurance, for example, financial services, trade, right? Sectors that are cash flow intensive. Well, those are all areas where there could be anti-money laundering abuses. So lawyers need to know something about the laws and how to prevent that, and what happens if in case an AML investigation or case arises. Compliance is related. It's related but different. I mean, when we talk about compliance with anti-money laundering laws, compliance is relevant there. But compliance is a very broad term, and entire courses and certifications are now being taught on compliance. So things like the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, data protection and privacy, trade restrictions. Well, there's this evolving body of international laws and principles that require compliance with those laws. And as an international practitioner, that is certainly an area that could be highly relevant to your practice. I'm going to mention it now because I'm running out of time to mention it later. In addition to this 6-hour program on anti-money laundering, which we actually might divide up into a separate 6-hour program on compliance, but for now, we have it in as anti-money laundering and compliance all in one shot. We'll probably then later take each of those to the next level and have their own separate longer certificate program. But we're also in the process of talking with international anti-money laundering certification providers, as well as compliance certification providers, where through those collaborations, we'll be offering a proper internationally recognized certification. Okay, so it's one thing to complete our certificate program, which gives you some knowledge and skills. It's a CV builder, and with the AIFC brand, it will help you in your job. And then we hope to also offer to those who want to take it to the next level these international compliance programs. So you can see some of the topics. I mentioned some of them already. Baker and McKinsey, the largest law firm in the world, has agreed to run this program. And then also we have the Financial Services Authority experts from the AIFC who also have agreed to be lecturers. So don't miss that one. Almas, next slide. Okay, business skills. This is the last certificate program I'll talk about. Lawyers, by definition, are well educated, and if they have their license, that means they're also fully competent and capable to operate as a professional and represent clients on transactions and in disputes. Well, that's great. That's fabulous. We're all proud to be part of that profession. But we have found that many lawyers may not have had any real academic exposure to business courses or business concepts that are highly relevant, that may be highly relevant in their jobs. They might be managers at law firms. They might be a general counsel at a company that has a staff of 20 lawyers or 5 lawyers. Well, when you manage people and you're managing a profit loss statement, if you will, that takes certain management and executive skills. And what about this? If you're a business lawyer, so your clients by definition are businesses, right? They're companies or they're partnerships or they're joint ventures or whatever they are. Your clients are businesses. Well, they care about business concepts because they live and breathe things like leadership principles. What's their strategy? How do they determine their strategy? What about their marketing processes? How do they assess their markets? What's their value proposition? How do their clients differentiate themselves in the market vis-a-vis their competitors? There's an adage that says business is like sports. Those with the best teams usually win. So human resources, performance management, right? Those things really matter to corporate clients. They really matter to law firms who are managing people within their law firm. These things really matter to general counsel who are managing their law department. So We're launching a program that will include 6-hour overview taught by, again, esteemed professors, PhDs, professor and author from Fordham Law School in New York City, international practitioners. So this will be pretty interesting. So we have people from the legal and business world who will be talking about business concepts at kind of an MBA level. Almost. Next slide. Okay, with that, I'm going to turn the floor over. I've gone over about 5 minutes where I was supposed to go, but I'm going to turn the floor over to my colleague, Jefferson Burton, who will talk about international qualification programs at the Academy of Law. Jeff, please.
Thank you, David. Please feel free to chime in if you have something to add.
I'll do that. Thank you, Jeff.
Yep. The Academy of Law in Barbary offers anyone who is eligible to become qualified U.S. attorney or solicitor in England and Wales. Brief introduction about the Barbary. It is the global leader in legal education, providing bar review for more than 50 years with more than 1.3 million alumni. Next slide, Almas, please. Let us talk about the first the U.S. qualification. The states of New York and California open for foreign law graduates and lawyers to sit down for their bar exam to become qualified U.S. attorney. Both New York and California have certain eligibility requirements that needs to satisfy. Let's say for the New York, the general rule for eligibility is if you hold a full-time 3 years LLB from a recognized common law jurisdiction. It means that your undergraduate degree must be in common law country. In case there is a deficiency in the LLB, you can take 1 year LLM in the US at an American Bar Association approved university. Once complete, you may be eligible to take the New York Bar. California, if you are a qualified lawyer in your home jurisdiction, whether it is common law or civil law, and your license is on current status, you can produce practicing certificate and good standing certificate, then California should be available for you. You can also take 1 year LLM in the US at American Bar Association approved university if there is a deficiency in the eligibility in California. Please note that eligibility is governed by the New York Board Law of Examiner or States Bar of California, and they are the only arbiter to confirm your eligibility. So all your documents must send to those governing bodies. Next slide, please. Let's talk about the benefits. There are lots of benefits that we could think of if you are a US qualified lawyer, but everything will funnel down into one important point: improve employability and global career enhancement. Remember that international clients from the US will be more comfortable in dealing with someone who understands their legal system. And there's a multinational company that has a US headquarters and also present in different jurisdictions. Next slide. Briefly, let's talk about the bar exam format. For the New York, the main one is the 2 days bar exam. First day is the multi-performance test, and in the morning and the afternoon, it's the essay exam. And the second day, it's the multiple choice test, 200 item, 100 in the morning, 100 in the afternoon. In New York, you need also to take the NYLC and NYLE exam. It is an online exam. It doesn't necessarily that you need to sit in the US to take this NYLC and NYLE, so you can take it anywhere in the world. Aside from that exam, you need to complete also the MPRE, which is Multi-State Professional Responsibility Examination. This will going to measure the candidate's knowledge and understanding of established standards related to the professional conduct of lawyer. This is more like a ethics exam. Now let's go to California. The also main one is the 2 days bar exam, which is composed of first day is the essay questions and the multi-performance test in the afternoon. And then on the second day, it is again 200 item multiple choice test, 100 in the afternoon and 100 in the 100 in the morning, 100 in the afternoon. In California, you need also to take this MPRE, which is the ethics exam. Next slide. Bar exam is every last Tuesday and Wednesday of February and July each year. So bar preparation that we offer is depend on your available time to commit on the program. We have 6 months program. Enrollment will be every February and September. So if you enroll for 6 months in February, that is the preparation for July bar exam the same year. If you enroll for the 6 months in September, which is this month, that is the preparation for February bar exam the following year. So that you will going to take the bar exam in February 2021. The time commitment for 6 months program is 20 to 30 hours a week. You need to follow that one so that you can follow the Barbary schedule that we're going to provide to you. The 10 months program is more flexible, and we recommend this to those who are working full-time. 2 enrollment also in the 10 months program. One in April in preparation for the February, the following year bar exam. Another enrollment is September, which is this month. This is the preparation for the July bar exam to the following year. Next slide. Once completed the bar exam, you are a qualified U.S. attorney. Once you qualify the attorney, it is equal rights to those lawyers who studied in the U.S. So there's no distinction on that. Next slide. Now let's talk about the path to become a solicitor in England and Wales. The Academy of Law offers foreign lawyers to become a qualified solicitor in England and Wales by passing the QLTS exam. The requirement is that the Solicitor Regulation Authority, the SRA, recognize the home jurisdiction and the qualified lawyers as defined by the SRA. You can check the link provided below to check your home jurisdiction if you are recognized, or you can contact us so we can advise you. Next slide, please. QLTS is composed of 2 assessments: multiple choice test and the OSCE objective or structured clinical examination, which is the practical part of the exam. It is the client interview, attendance note, advocacy, drafting, writing, and research. Let's talk about the QLTS MCT first. MCT is a computer-based exam, and you can take it anywhere in the world as long as the test site is available. The next enrollment for the MCT review is this September. That is the preparation for January 2021 MCT exam. Once you pass the MCT, the candidates will now eligible to take the second exam, which is the OSCE. The OSCE exam requires for the candidates to travel in London. The next enrollment for the OSCE will be next year, February 2021, and that is preparation for May 2021 exam. Kaplan is the sole exam provider, so you can visit their website and to check the test schedule. The first step that you need to do if you're interested in the QLTS is to get the exam slot through Kaplan, because it's easily filled up. If you have exam slot, this will make sure that at the end of your review, you can take the assessment. Also, take into consideration that the schedule was disrupted because of the current situation. So I strongly advise to visit the SRA website for the updates, as they are the governing bodies that determine the outcome of which candidate exam. Barbary will provide you all the materials, the schedules, the books that you need to pass the exam. Barbary will also assign a qualified solicitor, English qualified solicitor, who will monitor your progress. They will check in with you at a minimum of every 2 weeks, but will also be available for any questions in between, should they arise during your review. Next slide. Once complete the 2 assessments, you can submit all your documents to the SRA, and that's it. You are a solicitor in England and Wales. I am happy to schedule a call with anyone that want to discuss their options and provide guidelines in any international qualification that we talk about. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. And we are just a couple minutes past the hour, so we're running a little bit late. But if you all would like to stay on, please stay on the line with us, and we can take some of the questions that may have come in. Almas, do we have any questions that have come in?
Yes, David, we have now one question from Mahabat. She is asking, hello, can all law courses of AIFC help us to pass bar exam? Second question is, how much does QLTS exam cost?
Okay, on the bar exam, for that question, anything that we're doing that has a common law focus. So for example, the contracts course would certainly be relevant to common law. Some of the employment laws certainly would be. However, we would encourage you that if you're interested in taking a bar exam, to consider enrolling in the bar exam preparation course itself, because that course is all about one thing. And as Jeff said, there's a 6-month prep version and there's a 10-month prep version. And it's all study from home online, but it's state of the art with pre-recorded lectures, and you do have access to a live tutor. But those training programs, those courses are focused on one thing, and that's to prepare you to pass the bar exam in either California or New York. So anything that you take from us that has a common law content aspect to it certainly will be relevant and consistent with what you're going to need to know to pass a bar exam. But the Barbary prep courses are very intensive, and that's what it takes to actually pass one of those bar exams. So that's what we'd recommend. But if you don't quite feel ready for that, we do have an online legal English course that could be a good prep. And then some of the certificate programs, especially those with a common law focus, would be appropriate and consistent for preparing. In your second question, I'm going to give it to Jeff on the cost of the QLTS.
Okay, QLTS is composed, as I mentioned, composed of 2 assessments. We're going to talk about first the MCT. The exam fee is around £560. Please note that we are talking about UK pounds. So 560 that you need to pay to Kaplan, because Kaplan is the sole exam provider. And then for the preparation course, if you want to enroll in Barbary, you need to pay £1,850. That's payable to the Barbary. That's for the first assessment. Second assessment, once you pass the MCT, then you will take the OSCE. Second assessment, the payment is £2,950. That is payable again to Kaplan. That's your exam fee. And the payment for the Barbary is £1,950. Please note that you need to factor in the travel to London when you are taking the second assessment, because the exam is only in London. So in total, that will be £7,500 for MCT and OSCE, but without travel costs.
Thank you, Jeff. And I should note, those are not insignificant sums, but it's important to keep it in perspective when you think about the value of these tuition payments, if you will, that if you can become an English solicitor with full rights, the identical rights that someone who got their education in the UK have, you would have those identical rights. So when you think about the cost of an LLB in law, and then on top of that, the time and the cost of a legal practice course, and then the training contract, and all the other steps that you would need to take if you were doing it kind of the traditional way. Well, you as a foreign lawyer from a qualified jurisdiction can take this exam, take the practice course, take the exam, and if you pass the exam, that's it. You're a fully qualified solicitor. So on all these things, I think it's important. Like you all, I was a student. We were all students for a very long time. And so tuition expenditures, of course, really matter. But I always like to put it in the context of the value that you're getting, especially if you don't have to move you and your family to another jurisdiction to obtain the education you would need to take those exams. So thank you for that question. Very good question. Almas, are there any others?
Yes, David, question from Nursultan. He's asking, could you tell about SQE? Can I still pass QLTS after 2021?
Jeff, the latest update on the SQE launch, do you have that? I know it's a moving target that seems to change by the week.
Yeah, that's right. The SRA previously announced that they were going to launch the SQE in September next year, so September 2021. But with the current situation, it's like they moved some of the exam for the MCT this year to next year. So we need to keep an eye on the SRA website for their announcement, because this situation disrupt the schedule, so it keeps on changing.
Okay, and for those of you, I know this is a world of acronyms, but SQE is the Solicitor's Qualification Exam. Now, the SQE is intended over time to replace the QLTS. The QLTS is the Qualified Lawyer Transfer Scheme for foreign lawyers, right? However, it's our understanding from the Solicitor's Regulation Authority, the SRA, that if you have successfully completed the MCT assessment and or the OSCE, the part 2, that you can waive certain portion, or that they will waive certain portions of the SQE exam. Jeff, that's the latest you've heard, I assume, but that's the, so in other words, the MCT is substantive law based, and the assessment is based on substantive law. The second part, the OSCE, it covers practical skills, like interviewing a client and all kinds of various practical skills. Well, this exam, this SQE, Solicitor's Qualified Examination, it also will be assessing substantive skills and practical skills. So that if you have completed the MCT assessment, you've done the training course, you completed the exam, our understanding is the SRA, the Solicitor's Regulation Authority, would recognize that you've already demonstrated competencies in substantive law that was covered by the MCT, and therefore you won't need to take that substantive law portion of the SQE. I know it sounds complicated, but it's probably less complicated than it sounds, because basically the Solicitor's Regulation Authority recognized that during this transition between the QLTS exam and the SQE taking its place, that transition is going to occur a bit over time. So the SRA wants to make sure that students who have done the work and passed the MCT assessment are going to be recognized for that. And then you might have to go back and take only the practical skills side of the new SQE exam, right? So you just have to stay tuned, talk to us, pay attention to the SRA website, because, and that's not intended as a flimsy excuse not to address your questions, but it literally is a moving target, especially within this pandemic environment. So you have to just kind of pay attention to the latest updates on that whole situation.
Yeah, and David, once the candidate finish the MCT, the SRA will going to give them time, like a transition to complete the OSCE, the second part of the exam as well.
They will. They'll have that grace period.
That's right.
To complete the training and then to take the OSCE exam. And if they pass, that's it. They don't have to take the SQE, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, good. That was another really good question. Almas, any further?
Yes, one question from Dan. will you provide the current presentation and a bit more details about upcoming courses by email? So I guess we can share our PPTs with the audience.
Yes, that would be fine. And then we also will be sharing the, kind of the full brochure. But for now, no issue with sharing this PPT.
Okay, for now, we have no other questions. One question from Baurjan Ranadilov. Thank you very much for such an informative presentation. I would like to ask about the price for the certificate courses such as contract law, legal writing, and so on. How much will they cost?
Very good question. Okay, so for the certificate programs, the price will be, remember, it's 25 hours of lecture time, and then you will have some pre-reading. And so we're recommending that you pretty much double that lecture time to read the materials that will be distributed to you. That will give you the full benefit of the program. So 25 pure lecture hours, okay? So the price will be 30,000 tenge, which is about $73 US. And since we're on the subject, I'll go ahead and mention that the Foundations for Students program, which will launch shortly in October 13th, we do have a price of 27,500 tenge. I'm sorry, I misspoke. The certificates are 6 hours each, and the price tag is 30,000 tenge, $73 US. Okay, so I'm sorry, I misspoke. The Foundations for Students program is 25 hours plus the pre-work that you need to do on the reading assignments. So the Foundations for Students is 27,500 tenge, which is about $65 US. And with that one, we feel that's pretty good value because that's the one that's 25 hours for 27,500 tenge. But we also are launching a scholarship program. So if you're interested in that program, if you want to register, you can register. If you're interested in being considered for a scholarship to that program, you will be sending out details on that. You basically send us your CV and a 1-paragraph statement of interest in the scholarship, and you could be eligible for that. Okay, so fair enough. So my apologies on the certificate program, 30,000 tenge for the 6-hour certificate program. So with that, I think we're out of time, but please contact us, visit our website, and there will be more information to come. If you haven't already, we need your email addresses. If you would like us to put you on our mailing list so you can get the full details of all of our upcoming events and how to register and so forth. So with that, thank you very much to all of you for your time and attention, and we hope to see you at these programs. We're really excited to try to support your educational journey in a very cost-effective, cost-efficient manner. And so we hope to see you soon. So thank you very much. And thanks to my colleague, Jeff, and my colleague, Almas, for your support of this presentation today. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.